Hey, algebra students, a very easy lesson for today because this is just a takeoff from every lesson that we've done involving solving equations where we add the same thing to both sides or subtract the same thing from both sides. In this lesson, we're going to be learning about solving inequalities by adding and subtracting. And I'm just going to tell you, adding and subtracting with inequalities is just as easy as adding and subtracting with equations. The rule is, as you can see from the addition property of inequality and the subtraction property of inequality, as long as we do the same thing to both sides of each of these inequalities, we preserve the inequality. We don't actually change the solution at all. So notice at the top it says we can add c to both sides. That doesn't actually change the inequality, whether it's less than, greater than, less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to, as long as we do things consistently to both sides. Same thing is true of subtracting. In the second property, you see that we can subtract when it's less than, subtract when it's greater than, less than or equal to, greater than or equal to, as long as we subtract consistently the same thing from both sides. Let's see how this plays out in some actual problems. Letter A, solve the inequality and graph the solution on a number line. So we're solving the inequality x minus 1/2 is greater than 3. Well, I want to get x on a side by itself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 1/2 to both sides of this. So plus, let's see, plus, let me get this right, plus 1/2 on this side, plus 1/2 on this side. So I'm going to get x is greater than 3 and 1/2. 3 and 1/2. Okay, so if I graph that, I'm going to have a dot at 3.5, and I'm going to shade everything to the right. My dot is not going to be filled in. Let's take a look and see if we did this one correctly by looking at the answer to it. So do we have an answer that looks like that? Here's 3.5. Notice the open circle, and then everything to the right of that is shaded. Excellent. All right, that was letter A. Let me just mark that as A, and then we're going to do letter B. Letter B, same sort of thing. We have z minus 2 is greater than or equal to 1/2. Okay. What do I need to do to get z on a side by itself? I need to add 2 to both sides of this equation. Plus 2, plus 2. I find that z has to be greater than or equal to 2 and 1/2. Let's just see if that actually solves the original equation. What if I plug in 2.5 to the original equation? 2.5 minus 2 is equal to 1/2, right? So that solves the equation. And then anything bigger than that, if I subtract 2, it's going to be greater than 1/2. So this is the correct solution because I added the same thing to both sides. Now to graph it, I'm going to put a closed dot because it's greater than or equal to at 2.5 and shade to the right. Let's just make sure I got that answered correctly. Notice the closed dot at 2.5 and everything to the right is shaded. All right, moving on to letter C. Letter C, y plus 1.1 is less than or equal to 3.2. For this one, I need to subtract 1.1 from both sides to get 1.1 on a side, or sorry, to get y on a side by itself. So that leaves me with y plus 1.1 minus 1.1, the 1.1 goes away, is less than or equal to, I don't touch the sign still is pointing the same way. And then 3.2 minus 1.1 is 2.1. Y is less than or equal to 2.1. That's a closed circle at 2.1, and then everything to the left is shaded. Let's see if we did this one correctly. And there it is, 2.1, everything to the left is shaded. All right, letter D. Rebecca wants to crochet a scarf that is at least 4.4 feet long. Well, I'm just thinking about this as it's written. It says the scarf is at least 4.4 feet long. That means that we're dealing with greater than or equal to 4.4 feet, right? Because it can at least 4.4 feet means it can be 4.4, or it can be greater than. All right, so far she has completed 2.5 feet. How much more does Rebecca intend to crochet? So she has 2.5 feet plus however much more she crochets has to be greater than or equal to 4.4 feet. How am I going to solve this one? Well, I'm going to subtract 2.5 from both sides. Minus 2.5 minus 2.5. That tells me that X, the amount she has yet to crochet, has to be greater than or equal to 4.4 minus 2.5 is 1.9 feet. So X is greater than or equal to 1.9 feet. Now let's check my answer by plugging it back into the original. If I plug in 1.9, 2.5 plus 1.9 is 4.4. So that works because it's equal. And anything greater than that means she crocheted at least 4.4 feet. So that's how you do these problems. Easy, right? I'm sure you can do it. Make sure you do the problem set for tomorrow.